Every president in U.S. history has had a first lady. That didn't mean they were married. Wait, what? Oh, yeah. Let's do this. Rose Elizabeth Cleveland was born in 1846, the youngest of 9 children. She attended the Houghton Academy in New York, where she made it very clear she was brilliant, and that she didn't care what society told her she was supposed to be. She wanted education and independence, not a husband and kids. Well, her older brother was also intelligent, and recognized her intelligence. According to sources, he paid generously for her to get a good education. So she graduated from Houghton in 1866. Then they hired her to teach history and literature. Yeah, 2 of my favorites too. But in 1867, she moved on to the Collegiate Institute in Indiana and added math and Latin to her curriculum. Look, I said she was brilliant. Were you paying attention? Anyway, she also taught at Hamilton College in New York, an all-girls school in Pennsylvania, before she headed back to the family home in New York, which they had dubbed the Weeds. And once again back there, she was getting learning into the heads of kids at Houghton Academy. Yeah, but she wasn't only a teacher. She was also a prominent lecturer in New York State. She traveled to speak on things like history, of course, and women's rights. I know, that's so weird. Why would a woman want to do that? Anyway, again, so I mentioned her big brother. He had grown up and become a politician. I know, not the best career path. But he was apparently pretty good at it. Because on March 4th, 1885, Grover Cleveland was sworn in as the 22nd President of the United States. Oh, but there was a problem. Like, seriously. He'd never bothered to get married. And what's a POTUS without his first lady? Now remember, he was a smart man and made a brilliant choice when he asked his baby sister to fill the role. Well, she did not want any part of politics, or peopling, really. But she loved her big brother and his politics. Well, and she was a patriot who loved her country. So when he entered the White House, she was by his side. As First Lady, she did all the entertaining shit, throwing the parties, greeting the guests and dignitaries that showed up. She really preferred the people who could talk about history and language, too. You know, less boring and all. Alas, less boring did not mean that she was not bored out of her mind, because she absolutely was. She wanted to keep learning and teaching, but her country needed her. Remember, patriot? Just one example of that. She told women, wherever you go, show unwavering support for the United States and its leader. But back to being bored. She admitted when a particularly boring person was talking to her, and it happened a lot, she'd nod and at all the right times. But in her mind, she was conjugating Greek verbs for fun. So while she was in the White House, she let her progressive flag fly. She publicly supported women's suffrage, the Women's Anthropological Society, who wanted women in science, heaven forbid. She supported the Victorian dress reform, because women were tired of their clothes being painful. And she supported temperance, meaning she banned wine from the White House. Also, while she was First Lady, she published 2 books, George Eliot's Poetry and Other Studies, and The Long Run. There were others once she left the White House. But she was a woman. Neither society nor the press took women seriously. They criticized her for using her position to make money. Well, I guess today that's out the window. Anyway, a few gossip pieces called her ugly, too masculine, intimidating, because she was firm and serious and knew her shit. Isn't it awesome how intelligent women are called masculine? You know, because only men can be intelligent. For fuck's sake, moving on. Well, after only 15 months as acting First Lady, Rose Elizabeth finally got her wish, when Grover finally decided to give up bachelorhood. In June of 1886, Rose Elizabeth had helped plan a wedding to be held at the White House. She happily retrieved Grover's fiancé, Francis Folsom, from the train station, happily brought her home, and extra happily watched her walk down the aisle. 'Cause thank fuck that shit was over. Anyway, again. So, Grover got married. What about Rose Elizabeth? She moved to Chicago to edit a magazine, which was crazy. I mean, she was still a woman. Lots of folks thought she only got the position because the publisher wanted her name. You know, sales skyrocket because you have a former First Lady on the payroll. He offered her $6,000 annually. That's about $200,000 today. And she accepted. But it was only a few months later when they parted ways because they could not see eye to eye. She went back to teaching in New York and kept expressing her progressive political views, quite publicly. Yeah, that was offensive to certain folks. But it was extra offensive that she never got married. Folks called her a spinster. But no husband doesn't mean she never fell in love, for fuck's sake. See, in 1889, Rose Elizabeth was in Florida and she met someone, a young, wealthy widow called Evangeline Mars Simpson. They became quick friends and took to writing to each other. Over the following few years, their letters became more and more filled with love, desire, longing, and descriptions of the physical love they'd shared. But in 1892, Evangeline did something truly heartless when she accepted a marriage proposal from this really old, really rich dude by last name Whipple. He was a church bishop. Her letters to Rose Elizabeth became cold and impersonal. So Rose Elizabeth took her heartbreak to Europe and ached for Evangeline. Finally, in 1901, old dude kicked it, and love and desire returned to their correspondence. By 1910, they were living together in Italy. It was a little more accepting of a love like theirs. And that's where they stayed for the remainder of their relationship. During World War I, they advocated for and helped refugees. In 1918, they founded an all-girls school in Italy. But unfortunately, in that same year, Spanish flu came to the area. She and Evangeline stepped up, hired another woman, and started taking care of the sick. Not long after, Rose Elizabeth contracted and succumbed to the flu. She passed away on November 22nd, 1918, and was buried in Italy. Her funeral was well attended, including the refugees she'd helped, politicians, and others. When Evangeline passed in 1930, she was buried beside her love in Italy, and that is where they remain to this day. Much of what we know about their relationship came from their letters, which are part of a collection of Whipple family documents and letters held by the Minnesota Historical Society. The society said there were 9 boxes of documents and letters. They neglected to mention the 10th. But a request in 1978 turned that shit upside down. The request stated there was a 10th box, which revealed a lesbian relationship between Rose Elizabeth and Evangeline. Obviously, they were right. Which is, as I'm sure you've guessed, precisely why it was hidden. But now it is included in the catalog, because it should be. Fucking duh. Just some personal thoughts on this one. Something I hope you'll consider. Rose Elizabeth Cleveland was not the only acting First Lady in history, but she is the only, so far, who was also a lesbian. Yes, I am aware of the First Lady who was probably bi, but bi is not lesbian. I can speak from a place of expertise on this one. At first, I was going to focus on their relationship. You know, scandalize some small-minded folks. But nearly every modern source is already doing that. They go ahead and skip over the important shit like her intelligence, that she was an author, a lecturer, and multilingual. No, they just want to point out that there was a gay First Lady. Yeah, she fell in love, had a lasting relationship, and is buried beside her love. That's no different than any traditional marriage. It might feel like a huge gotcha to say, gay First Lady, but to exclude everything else, to suggest that her relationship was her only defining feature, diminishes everything else about her, erases shit that matters, and completely disregards her patriotism. It reduces her to nothing more than what's down there. That said, I beg you, pay attention to the language in reports like this about women, historically and now. Why would they focus only on their love letters? Only on their relationship? Why would they draw attention away from her accomplishments, her obvious strengths? Why do you think that might be? If she's only what's down there, folks can forget the other shit and reinforce to the world that women are nothing if they don't have a man. Language matters, my friends. It's up to us to change it and the narrative, and reinforce to the world we are intelligent, brave, patriotic, and powerful because we are women. A lot of folks don't like that. Sucks to be them.